In this video, we're going to be talking about reframing and the way that we perceive ourselves. We're going to be flipping the switch on some of that negative talk, some of those negative thoughts, and creating some magic. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hi and welcome to Oaklaw Door. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Claire Attio. For those that are returning subscribers, thank you. And reframing. It's interesting because we always say that the best teachers are those that have lived life, experienced things, and it really brings in a compassion and an understanding of the challenges, of the difficulties. And so for any of you out there at the moment experiencing challenges, experiencing difficulties, are making choices that you know are not serving you, but you're still making them anyway, please remember that those experiences, when you can pull yourself out of that cycle, that downward cycle, when you can pull yourself out of it, when you're ready to pull yourself out of it, you will start a trajectory upward cycle, and everything that you experience will be of benefit, not just to yourself so that you can actually learn and make those changes, but to other people. I think this is what we need to remember when we're reframing, and it's interesting because it's that taking ownership of the ish that we have created in our lives, taking ownership of experiences, even if we have not been the only person creating that ish, when we have been part of it, when we have been participating consciously, unconsciously or subconsciously, or just because we have been in there and we haven't been able to get off of that trajectory in that moment. Once we take ownership and go, okay, this is ish in my life that I presently cannot, or feel that I cannot change at this moment, but I'm going to take ownership that it is ish and I am not being the best version of myself. When we take ownership of that, that is a massive step forward. Because what I've found, and what I found in myself, is we get into situations where we're not being the best versions of ourselves, and then we go into an even bigger spiral of this self-deprivating, self-loathing that brings our energies and our frequencies even lower. And it's really important to step away from that. And taking ownership of going, okay, that's a circumstance where I wasn't my better self. I take ownership of that. And applying forgiveness to ourselves allows our vibrations to rise, and it allows us to change the downward trajectory spiral to an upward trajectory spiral. And it may be that you take ownership and you're still spinning on the same ring for some time before you're able to have that upward movement, but that is brilliant. It's still a massive step forward, because what you've actually done there is you've stopped the downward spiral. You've stopped it in its tracks by taking ownership, and that is really powerful It's very empowering, and it is a step in the right direction. You've put a stop to the downward spiral, and you may be in that same cycle. You may still be doing the same ish that is creating challenges, it is creating problems, it is creating difficulties, but you're not going any lower. You're not spiraling downwards. The challenge with this is not to allow your head, especially if you've stopped that, you've taken it, right, okay, I'm taking ownership of this. This is what I'm doing to myself. This is what I've created. But I'm still not changing. And so I'm still repeating that same pattern. It's very easy to underestimate the power of what you've done, to not acknowledge the power of what you've done. The power of what you've done is you have stopped that downward spiral. You may not have started to go up, but you've stopped it. You've stopped it in its tracks, and that is really important, that you acknowledge that you celebrate that you give yourself a pat on the back for that, because that is the first stage of reframing any habit, any pattern that doesn't function for us, that is not taking us to who we know we can be, or who we were, or who we want to be. When you're in that stopped cycle, that's when you start to look at, okay, why did this downward spiral start? What were my triggers? What made me take that path, make those decisions, do that thing? And you'd be gentle with yourself there, because there will be times where you don't feel strong enough to examine those root causes. And that's okay. You take ownership of that as well. And you go, okay, there's trauma there. There's trauma there. There's trauma that sent me down that path in the first place. I've stopped it. But I know if I go and visit that trauma, it is going to trigger me so badly that I am not going to be able to maintain the stopping of that downward spiral. That's okay. That's being honest with yourself. You don't push yourself in that moment. You're taking ownership of where you are. And again, that is a massive step forward, to be able to take ownership of saying, if I look at that, then that is going to trigger me so badly that I'm not going to be able to maintain my stop cycle, and it is going to send me on a spiral downwards. Again, a massive step. You're taking ownership. You're saying, yes, I know there's trauma. Yes, I know it needs dealing with, but I'm not strong enough at the moment to deal with that. It's that deep honesty. And the problems that we have is that society really is, it encourages us to be on the up and up continuously, and it doesn't recognize the need. It doesn't recognize, it doesn't celebrate, it doesn't allow us to celebrate. We have never been brought up to celebrate the fact that we have put the brakes on a downward spiral. We may not be on the up, but putting those brakes on needs celebrating, it needs championing, it needs to be acknowledged in a very positive way. And we're really lacking as a body of people, humanity, we are really lacking in celebrating those moments. just acknowledging where you're at, acknowledging that the activities that you're partaking in is dysfunctional for you, isn't healthy for you, is not who you want to be, is massive. And then acknowledging that, okay, yeah, there is trauma, there is beliefs, there is values, there is a pattern of negative thinking that is holding me stuck, and I know it's there, but I don't have the strength to deal with that at the moment, or I feel that I don't have the strength to deal with that at the moment. That is massive, acknowledging that. And it's about learning to get comfortable with where you are. When we're able to acknowledge that, and then we're not pushing ourselves so much so that we would hurt ourselves, because we have to be, there is a balance here, because we all have this ability to procrastinate. We all have to think, we all have this ability to think that looking at a trauma is going to hurt us more than what we're already hurting, and so we push it away, we keep it over there, we don't want to deal with it. And so we have to, there has to be a level of honesty, and there has to be some regular check-ins to make sure, okay, is it because I really don't have the strength? Is it because at this point in my life that would stop me from being able to maintain my stop mode and send me on a downward spiral? Or is it because my fear is getting the better of me and I am procrastinating over this? Because the other aspect of any journey and of the upward spiral, downward spiral, when we're in a stasis, we can get comfortable with that stasis, we can get familiar with that stasis, we can feel safe in that stasis. And so to push ourselves out of that, to do the work that is needed to come out of that stasis, can bring up fears. And so it's very important to, one, acknowledge that we're in that stasis, to acknowledge that at this moment we're not ready to come out of that stasis, but also to check in with ourselves, okay, am I really not ready, or is it just because I have a fear of? Because to move into another paradigm is an unknown quantity. The stasis we know. And moving into that unknown quantity can in itself bring up fears. Who am I going to be? And this has come up a lot when I've done healing with people with childhood trauma, is that they have grown into adults being a certain way, being a certain person, having a certain story to tell of why they are like they are. And if you take that story away, if we heal that story, if we neutralize the pain that exists within that story, who are they going to be? And I know I've dealt with this myself, and it is challenging. Who am I going to be if I'm not that person anymore? Who am I going to be? And this is where I did a video on Tuesday where I was talking about the question for alignment shouldn't be what do I need to do, but who do I need to be? And so when you're in that stasis, and if you know that you are in that procrastinating stasis cycle, you know that actually you're in a better place and a better space, and you do actually have the energy, you do have the strength to visit that creates this downward spiral. It's good to acknowledge, okay, I'm procrastinating here. And allow yourself to sit there until you feel ready to come out of that procrastination. Keep going back to it, going back to it, going back to it. There is no timeline, no time scale. There is no right or wrong way of doing any of this. This is about how you feel and your safety within the work that you're doing to break these cycles that don't function for you. Push yourselves by all means, but also know when to pull back. And also know that sometimes we have to push ourselves to go break the patterning of the stasis, that cycle where we feel comfortable, where we feel safe. And in doing that, sometimes we can drop a little bit further, but it's from that dropping a little bit further, we then have the tools and the mindset. We've done the work on the reframing to know that, okay, yeah, we're going to drop a little bit more, but then we're going to ascend further than what that stasis was. So it's like dropping down 1 so that we can go up 4. There will be other times when you're in that stasis and you do the work and you go up 4. But there was still a tentacle. I always think of trauma as tentacles. It's like a little octopus, and it sits itself in different places and aspects of our life. And so we can go, right, okay, I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to do this healing. And you do that healing and you take yourself out of that stasis and you rise up. But then a couple of years later, something else happens. Another trigger comes on. And it's the same wound. And you go, ugh, and you drop down. And anybody who knows me, and anybody who's had conversations with me, and anybody that I've worked with, I'm always going, but I healed that bit. But it's, you know, I often say, oh, but I thought I healed that. And it is. I did heal that. It's not about not healing it. It's just I didn't capture that tentacle in that specific aspect of my life. Or the other flip side to that is you're now in a place and a space and you have evolved to another level where you're able to take the healing even deeper. And I think this is something I really struggled with, especially on the beginnings of my healing journey, because I would, and I'm like, what's going on? I healed that. Why has that come back onto my spectrum? Why have I recreated that situation energetically? What's going on? And it was because I was ready to take it deeper. I was ready to take yet another layer of that onion off. There is no right and wrong. It's about being honest with yourself and working through discovering who you are as a soul being at your pace, at your level, on your timeline. And knowing that there is spirals up and down continuously. It's that turning of the wheel. We have the good fortune on the top and the karma on the bottom, and that wheel continuously turns. The same as cycles continuously go round. The seasons, we go from winter to spring to spring to summer to autumn to winter. It's cycles. And what happens in those cycles when we allow ourselves to flow, when we allow ourselves to change and reframe our mindset, rather than thinking, oh, I've dropped down again, we think, okay, this is an opportunity. There is something else here for me to learn. There is something else here for me to gain. There is something else here from which I can discover about myself and grow. And it's when we do that that we can then step into the compassion in a much greater way. It's then that we can afford forgiveness in a much greater way, because we have acknowledged that within ourselves, and so we are much better equipped to acknowledge that in others. And I would actually say that the best teachers, the best inspirators, the best motivators of this world are those that have lived a colourful life, because they have first-hand experience. They know the pitfalls, they know what it feels like, they know the challenges. They know how they had to dig themselves out of the trenches step by step. And it's really important to recognise that it is a step by step. And there are times when you'll just want to sit on that step and you think, I'm knackered, I can't do anymore. That's where that stasis is. It's like sitting on the steps. It's like getting halfway up and just sitting there, or getting halfway down and sitting there. Stasis is not a bad thing. The danger is not recognizing it and saying, okay, this is my life, this is my potential. Potential of ourselves, potential of others, potential of life, the universe, is infinite. Don't allow anybody to put you in a box, and don't put yourself in a box. Don't sit on that step. Don't be in that stasis and think this is all there is. You, me, we get to co-create our realities. If we need to sit on that step because we're knackered, if we need to sit on that step because we are devoid of strength in that moment, because it has been like climbing Mount Everest just to get on those 2 runs, sit there for a while. But don't allow yourself or allow others to say, that's your lot. Spend the time on that step thinking about who you want to be, what can you uniquely, because of the experiences you've lived, because of the challenges you've gone through, what can you offer to be of service to humanity? What conversation can you have to somebody who's sat beside you that will help them, and in turn they will help you? This is not about segregation. This is not about success and failure. This is about us all being interconnected, and we all could do with a big dose of understanding that possibility is infinite, potential is infinite, and each and every one of us, no matter what the F we have done, we all have the capacity to change and to co-create something that does align with us, that does fill us with joy, that does fill us with purpose. So I hope that has helped. If you know of somebody that would benefit from the video, please feel free to share. If you've not yet subscribed, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. Please put your likes, because the more likes that are attained, the more people the algorithm pushes this out to, Until next time, sweet souls, blessings.